Super Mario Odyssey. This is a game I have yet to make a video on, but have been planning to for quite some time. Obviously, until now. Mario's main ability in each game is to jump. It is required in basically every game in order to complete them, except for Super Mario Odyssey. Super Mario Odyssey introduced Cappy, which gives you a ton of movement options besides jumping. While it still is a big restriction, Cappy makes it possible to beat the game without making the jump counter increase at all. It took me many hours and a few attempts, but I was able to beat the game with my jump counter displaying a 0. Now let's take a look at what you may perceive to be a jump, but actually isn't one according to the game. Jumping while in any capture, this was the most surprising to me. Wall jumps, bouncing an enemy while holding the jump button, ground pound jumps from below the surface of water, vaulting off of Cappy, jumping in quicksand, swimming upwards while underwater, jumping off of trees or poles, jumping while using a scooter, and waking up at the start of the game and in the start of Lost Kingdom. Now, if you were paying attention to this list, one of the restrictions may make this challenge sound impossible, but there is a workaround for 2 illegal moves in this challenge. If you are wondering why talking to an NPC is considered a jump, it is actually because you jump for a single frame before talking to them. If the buttons you can use to talk to NPCs weren't the ones you used to jump, this would not be a problem. However, this still isn't a problem. You can avoid increasing the jump counter by entering first person mode before talking to the NPCs. However, there are some NPCs in locations where the camera is locked, but you can still talk to them without increasing the jump counter by talking to them just before you hit the ground after ground pounding. More importantly, there is a workaround for the second illegal move, waking up after fighting Bowser in Moon Kingdom. If there wasn't one, this challenge would be impossible right at the very end of the game. That would be very unfortunate. However, we aren't living in that timeline, so if you connect another controller after the Bowser fight and press either A or B on that controller, see, that was a cap vault, not a jump. After this, you can disconnect the second controller, but obviously that still makes one player jumpless impossible at the moment, so let's hope something new is discovered. I'm very doubtful of that, but you never know. Anyway, my first attempt at this challenge was a huge failure. I went in with some background knowledge, but not all. For some reason, I felt pretty confident that I did everything correctly. It was going to see 0 out of 10,000 on the jump counter screen, but nope. Instead, I saw 9 out of 10,000 and felt pretty demotivated to continue. I really felt as if I didn't do anything that would make the jump counter go up, so out of confusion, I joined the Odyssey low percent Discord and started asking questions. I then realized that I was jumping at the surface of water. For some reason, I thought this wouldn't have been considered a jump, but unfortunately, I was wrong, and apparently I did it 9 times in the playthrough. After joining this Discord server, I built up a lot of confidence that I could easily do this on my next attempt. So as expected, I did another attempt. Let's go more in depth on this one. Cap Kingdom. I died here and I'm really ashamed to admit it. Nothing really special happened here. This kingdom is very short, but when you jump with the frog, it really does feel like you are making the counter increase when you are not. The boss here is kind of annoying without being able to jump, but I did get through it. Cascade. I got the first moon, did dino skip since it is required in Jumpless since 2D jumps are banned, and got another moon and left. Sand Kingdom. Got a bunch of moons here, used a little bump in the ground to my advantage, and I'd say my biggest concerns in this kingdom would have been talking to the Sphinx, wall jumping, and jumping off of the palm tree. While I knew I wasn't increasing the counter, it really did feel like I was. For Lake Kingdom, my route was the exact same as the normal non-lake clip speedrun route, except the movement was obviously bad because jumpless. Water was a big fear of mine in this playthrough since it is what killed last attempt, but I avoided it as much as I could by getting the cheap as soon as possible and doing the wall jump thing before the boss. The boss here was pretty simple, but I did manage to get my health to 1 out of 3. Wooded Kingdom. Besides the 2 moons that you get in the sewer, my route was the exact same here as it would be in the regular speedrun route. To replace these 2 moons, I got atop the tall tree and the nut round the corner. Also, the boss here was easy as he doesn't move after his little spin around the arena thing. Cloud Kingdom, where I did the initial Bowser fight and was bracing myself for the harder version of this fight coming later. It was bad. Lost Kingdom. Woke Mario up and yup, it doesn't count as a jump. I need to do Klepto Skip here, of course, since Mario is very bad without Cappy, and from here on out, I got the exact same moons that I would get in a speedrun, but once again, with very bad movement, of course. Also, I was getting really bad input lag here. I'm not really sure what was up with that. I've heard this problem happens a lot with this game, so, you know, whatever. My last moon was the one under the bridge, and after I got it, I tried to see if I could progress without an intentional death, but then realized I obviously couldn't. I did the intended night metro route because for some reason, I thought you couldn't do the speedrun strat here. I got the moon inside the building and proceed to go to the Mecha Wiggler battle. No difference here between the normal playthrough and the jumpless one, so not really worth talking about this here. It was now time to go on the moon marathon in Day Metro, and as you can see, I am bad at the RC car. I was shocked the ground pound here was actually in the right place, and was not sure if I should get the pole swinging moon or not, because for some reason, I was afraid the pole jumps would have increased the counter, so I left, got the free moons by talking to the band member NPCs in first person mode, but then realized I needed 1 more, so I decided to stop being a coward and went back and got the pole swinging moon. Snow Kingdom. I was going to get the Captain Toad moon here, but first person did not work since the camera was locked, and I was too afraid to mess up the ground pound thing, so I skipped it. I got some story moons and tried to search for some extra replacement ones. I got got 2 extra story moons that aren't obtained in speedruns, and one of them did require me to fight a boss. Needless to say, I spent way too much extra time here because I was too afraid of increasing the counter. Seaside was next. The only moon I didn't get here that is obtained in speedruns is the first one, as I couldn't find a way to do it without jumping, and I was too lazy to capture the thing, so I got some other moons. I was really careful to not trigger the counter while I was in the water, and since I had the coins, I went in first person mode and bought a moon from the shop to replace the one I skipped earlier. Luncheon was next. This kingdom requires the most moons and was the longest one so far. I tried to get the Goomba stack moon here, but then realized I need 4 and messed it up. I went to the boss, same thing as Wooded, collected some moons, tried way too hard to get up on one particular pillar for a moon, then went back to do the Goomba stack moon correctly. Got the 2 moons in the fork room of course, unlocked the next area in the kingdom and did some pro gamer moves to get this moon over here. Got the multi-moon, and for the last 2 required, I got Light the 2 flames and the one on the roof. Ruined Kingdom. This boss took me 3 attempts because I was extremely careless, but Jumpless does for sure add a bit of extra difficulty to this fight. Bowser's Kingdom. I did the same route here as the one I use in speedruns, only 2 extra moons are required to be picked up here. This first thing was kind of annoying to beat, but eventually I did and moved on. Got another moon in the Topper and Harriet fights were next. Topper was a lot more difficult in this challenge since it is hard to hit his head since he keeps moving, but Harriet was basically the exact same since you don't need to jump in that fight. I climbed up the wall and it was time for the Mecha Brutal fight. I did not do the speedrun strats here since I was scared I would somehow increase the counter, so I did the boring intended strat and got through. Also, this strat is very slow. Moon Kingdom was next. I wasn't sure if Moon Cave skip was possible here, so I did the Moon Cave. I accidentally jumped on the Bowser fight after this, so this was a complete waste of time. I did Moon Cave again, accidentally jumped again, and I was sick of playing through Moon Cave, and I knew there had to be a way to do jumpless Moon Cave skip. There was, so I learned it. It did take quite a few tries, but it was much better than going through that annoying cave again, and then I went to the boss. What I did not mention yet is how annoying the final Bowser fight is jumpless. I hate to admit this, but I spent an entire hour here trying to figure out how to do it. I am honestly not sure how, but on my first attempt, I beat it on my first try. It was almost as if my memory got wiped. I then figured out you need to make sure your health was near perfect at all times, do a bounce roll right before you get hit to go over the flame rings, and then obviously punch Bowser. This might sound pretty simple, but if your roll was slightly too early, too late, or at a weird angle, you will take a hit. It was extremely frustrating. The normal final Bowser fight in this game is fairly easy, but Jumpless truly does make it a lot harder. Eventually, I was able to complete it. I entered 2-player mode with my Joy-Con, I did a cap vault, and then went back to single-player mode. I could jump freely from here since I was Bowser and not Mario, so the jumps did not count. I then beat the game. I rushed through the ending cutscene and credits to be able to know as soon as possible if I succeeded or not, went to Toadette, and what the fuck. This was extremely frustrating to say the least. This attempt was the one I spent the most time on, mainly on that horrible final Bowser fight, and I was confused what could have possibly increased the counter. But then I realized what I did in Moon Kingdom. I accidentally jumped as the game was saving. I did attempt to close and reopen the game after I did this, but it was too late. The counter already increased to 1. I did everything correctly, but that one stupid mistake prevented me from succeeding. 3rd time's a charm. I had all the knowledge I need, not only about what actions to avoid, but what mistakes to also avoid. Rushed through, beat the game, went back to Toadette, and was relieved that I didn't have to do this horrible challenge again. 0 out of 10,000. There it is. I beat Super Mario Odyssey without triggering the jump counter. If you are wondering why I went in depth on the unsuccessful attempt and not the successful one, it is because this attempt would have likely been the most boring one to cover. I basically knew everything I needed to at this point, with some extra experience too. My first attempt was just really bad, but my second I feel was the most important in this challenge. I had a lot of problems to solve that I need to figure out. I already knew the answers to these on my 3rd attempt, and come on, this attempt was pretty much successful anyway, if you ignore that singular mistake that is now going to be the bane of my existence. Anyway, there you have it. Beating Super Mario Odyssey without jumping. This challenge was fun, but I would be lying if I said it didn't make me mad. I feel that the hardest part of this challenge is not knowing whether you are successful or not until the very end. There is no way to check the jump counter until you actually beat the game, so when you think about it, you could be successful in every area besides Cap Kingdom. But if you knew you made a mistake in Cap Kingdom, you could simply reset and try again. And that's that. Thank you guys for taking the time to check out my video, I greatly do appreciate it. If you have any ideas for future videos, be sure to leave those in the comment section. Also, if you want to support the channel, leaving a like helps out a ton. If you want to see more videos like this one, feel free to drop a sub, and I'll see you guys in the next one.